Hello and welcome to another BuildASoil YouTube episode. Today we've got our Battle Tent Season 1, Episode 4. The last time I recorded, I was about to leave town, and so it's been 3 weeks. So because of that, when you see it, it's overgrown in 3 weeks compared to when I left, they were like this big. And so I just want to get in there and show you. Normally what I'd do is I would not get them this big. So before you see in there, I just want you to know, we don't normally let them get that big. In fact, if you go to our feeding schedules and you go to the earth box one, it says flip early. Do not let them get too big because the earth boxes are just so powerful. But I had a big dilemma, and this is gonna happen to you as a grower. So I take these as learning opportunities to share what to do because it doesn't always go perfect. I had a dilemma. Either I flip to flower when the plants are smaller than I want, which would work fine. It really would. It'd be really good results. But it wouldn't be as much yield, and I wouldn't get to teach you managing the canopy very much. And so I could have just flipped to flower, but then I would be gone for the most important 2 weeks while they're stretching, and I wouldn't be able to record and film and share that with you. So I thought, you know what? I'll just give it those 2 weeks, and as soon as I get back, we'll manage the canopy, and then we'll flip to flower. And I expected it in my mind, even knowing how well earth boxes work. It's just the BuildASoil way has gotten so good. The soil's so good, the lights are so good, the AC Infinity controllers, like all the things, there's just no excuse anymore, and it goes so fast that I overshot it like double what I thought it was gonna be. So instead of me just talking, let me show you what it looks like. And I'm a little embarrassed because it should not be this big, but new growers, they veg for too long. They'll do this many, many times. And so I think this is a great lesson to show you what to do. And I'm gonna hit the most important things that you need to consider when you've overshot your veg. So let's take a look. This is the Grand Master side. If you don't know, the side-by-side is everything the same in both tents, but 2 different grow lights. And so I had to dim the light while I was gone as soon as I got back because they were getting too close. It was starting to make the plants not as happy, right? When the intensity is too much and there's only a small amount of food and soil in these earth boxes and they're getting so big, my game plan to get to today where I could film and do what needs to be done was to dim the light, slow the speed down a little bit. That's what bought me the last 2 days because I intended to do this on the 13th on Monday. Today's Wednesday the 15th. I laid this out. I wanted to record it yesterday afternoon. I just didn't have the time to do it right. And I don't want to rush through these videos. So I thought we'll do it in the morning. So it's the morning and I got a jungle in here. I've seen many new growers do this, so I think it will be helpful to understand, how to fix this. But if I were to flip to flower right now, I'd be through the light. It's the worst mistake you can make as a new grower. It really sucks. I'd rather you flip to flower too early, have a small plant that's easy to grow, that has the highest quality, that's like brag-worthy, that you can show off to your friends, versus a couple good nugs up here, some burnt past the light, and a whole bunch of fluff down below. So if you find yourself in this situation, I'm gonna show you exactly what to do. However, if you're trying to copy me, don't copy what I did here. What I would prefer to do is let's break this into thirds. I have the top third here, which I really do need to keep the distance from the light and keep the heat up here evacuating and keep the environment right. So I don't want any plants in this top third. We're pretty much already there. The problem is plants double to triple and stretch, and this GMO is a really big stretcher. So had I flipped early, I could have used that vertical stretch to keep bending it to the sides and then let it go up. I'm well past that, and so one old school way is you can literally put your screen on and just smash everything down and then clean it up, and it doesn't take very long. I'm gonna try and do it a little more disciplined than that, and I also need to take some clones today, but I will share with you, my goal is to get a scrog screen on, which if you don't know what a trellis netting scrog screen is, it's this plastic net. I'm gonna open it and put it in here. It'll help hold this down, and when the buds grow above it, it'll help hold the weight so I don't have them falling and hitting the floor later in flower, which can happen. So I've gotta put this on, but I wanna put it on probably here, because when I flip to flower from here, then they can stretch all the way up to here without being in a really bad state, and that's about double. And I will tuck some of it to the sides as it flips. But here's the problem. There's like a bag and a half of soil in an earth box, and as powerful as they are, even with the Build-A-Flower and Craft Blend, If I were to just hack this back and flip to flower, I would run out of nutrients, and we're not feeding it anything. This is water only down the tube. So the only place that I have to put food is in the top. And the good news is with an earth box, you can really make this work even if you've overgrown it. And so what I'm gonna do after I do all the work in here is you can either unzip it, right, and put some food in here, or you can just go a little more wild and take the whole thing off, which we're gonna do. And I'm gonna mound this pretty high on here. And that's the power of the earth box. Normally in like a 10-gallon pot, 15-gallon pot, you need this edge here so that you can water from the top and the water won't spill out. But in an earth box, we water down below. So I can mound the food up here and the plant is gonna take feeder roots and dig into it. The reason why that's important is something happens. If you're new to growing, you may not know this, but as above, so below. You may have heard that expression. And so the old style of growing indoors where you're using like soil, but really it's soilless hydro. It's like peat moss and perlite. They would take like your Fox Farm soil or whatever, and you'd transplant from your 1 gallon or your cup into your 5-gallon or whatever small container they used at the time. And then you'd flip to flower. So you had this transplant schedule. The reason for that is when you transplant, the roots that are there have all this fresh soil to explode their roots into. And when you flip to flower, all that stretch that happens here, they're gonna double in size. That same stretch happens below and the roots fire. And I learned a lot, but you don't need a PhD to freaking grow plants. So I'm just trying to keep it simple. Think of it this way. The roots, as it's being sent out from the plant, those initial roots at the tip, that's where they can really get down on getting the food and nutrients, as opposed to as the tips swim through, these parts of the roots aren't quite as efficient. They'll still be taking up nutrients, but it's that tip where it's penetrating through and all the biology and everything's happening. So if we're already kind of root bound, there's not a lot of room for new root tips to be sent out. And so if I were to transplant this whole plant into a big bed of soil, it could fire its roots out, but that's a waste of effort. So the trick here is that we're gonna stack a lot of volume of top dress here to allow these plants to fire new roots into that top dress so that they can handle what I want out of them. And that's a lot of yield, even though they've already burnt through a lot of the soil and nutrients here. So once I'm done, in a few minutes, I'm gonna get started. We're gonna take some clones because I need to preserve these. And I'm just gonna set them in a glass of water that I have here. And I'm gonna put some aloe vera in it and I'm just gonna soak them. That's what I do before I puck them up. I've got lots of videos on that. Search BuildASoil cloning, rooting cuttings. You'll be able to find my videos. Today is about these 4x4 tents. And so let me show you the other one before I get started, but I'm going to be taking some clones. I'm gonna be cleaning the lowest lowers off, and then I'm going to be probably topping and bending. And so I'll be taking, for instance, this one that's too tall. It'll now be here under the screen like this when we're done. This one that's too tall, it'll be here. And as I move these, we're gonna create a density underneath that's gonna need to get cleaned up. So that's why the just smash it down method works pretty well. You can literally just put a trellis net on here, bend them, smash them, hurt them a little bit, clean it all up, and in a day or two, you'll literally have a full canopy in here. But when you only have a couple plants, I think it's better to carefully do it. So I'm gonna show you that. And my goal is to get it a little bit lower. Like if I did it halfway here, this GMO is gonna stretch it so much, it's not possible. So I'm gonna be very aggressive today and drop it. And I'm gonna encourage you, if you overgrow, to be very aggressive as well, because they just explode here in these earth boxes. Before I get into nutrients, clones, and all the stuff I just mentioned I'm gonna do, let's show you the other side. This is a side-by-side. Looking pretty dang good. So if you have been following along, you'll know, but this is the Cypress 6. Its feature is that it's very easy to set up. It unfolds, okay? And then you click the driver on. It does have an upgrade now, so everybody getting these will have a daisy chainable switch where you can toggle it to a dimmer, or the way we're running it is through a controller here on the AC Infinity. And if you look at our tent bundles, instead of trying to figure it out, we have this all bundled, so you can just get the kit just like this if you want, and then add on the Earthbox kit so that you can grow like this. But this one is not only, it unfolds, it has that, it's got the green, a lot more green. It's got specific green chips instead of just green heavy white chips. And I don't know, is it really worth it? Does it make a big difference? The hypothesis from other lighting companies and other growers has been that the new findings on green. You can watch Bugbee. A lot of people mention him. He's got videos on YouTube. The green does more than we thought, and it goes deeper into the tissue of the plant. And so the idea is that if you have that, maybe creating this full spectrum with a little more green when we didn't focus on green before, maybe that'll help carry the rest of the spectrum deeper into the plant, penetrate at least not into the canopy, but into the tissue of the plant deeper. Maybe we can get better results, more efficient results with the same wattage. So in any case, this one is the Grandmaster, and this one, its claim to fame, its feature is that not only do they have a ton of people that swear by these lights, but they're wall to wall. It's the only grow light designed specifically for a 4x4 grow tent or a 5x5 grow tent. They have two models. So when you get this one, the plant here is going to get the exact same amount of light as in the middle, where that one is a little weaker around the edges. And they accomplish that by putting an extra strip on the edges, and on the edges here, extra LED diodes at the edge of the board. So you have like this halo around it, where instead of getting dimmer, it's the same in every corner of the tent. So I think it's pretty cool. I'm really enjoying both lights, and if you take a step back, you can really see that they're pretty similar. I see slight different color in here. You can really notice that, a little bit redder with the green over here, or whatever that appearance is on your eyes. But the node distance looks slightly stretchier maybe. Looks a little bit tighter in here. And if it is slightly redder, more infrared, more far red, things like that, it's possible that that is creating that. But you know, they're very similar in height. So it's not like one was really stretchy or anything. And of course I've been bending those a little bit. So if I bend this a little, it'll change the shape. But for being this overgrown, for being out of town, and for just having someone put water down the tube, I gotta say I'm just constantly impressed with how easy it is to grow in earth boxes. I can't tell you how many times I go to a grow group or forum and people are like, yo, what's wrong with my plant? Do I need CalMag? Do I need a pH? Like, what do I do? In the BuildASoil way, when you have a balanced soil to start and you've top dressed a buffet of nutrients, you never wonder that. It's just, did I water enough or did I not? And then in an earth box, you don't even have to worry about getting the water right as long as you follow a protocol and you get this type of result. So problems you might have are like this. It just went too long. This was on December 11th. It's now January 15th. So this is like 34 days of veg, which is about double what we needed. I think 2 weeks veg in an earth box is probably pretty good with one plant, maybe a little less if you have 2 plants. 3 weeks probably would have been ideal in here to fill the whole tent. Going 4 to 5 weeks was just, I mean, it just creates this type of effect. So let's get started. I need to take some clones, so I'm gonna do that, at least to preserve them. And so there's arguments, tops, bottoms. Obviously I'm trying to keep the tops hammering here, and I've got these plants at home, so I'm not too worried about it. But instead of tossing these, I'll either give them away or I'll keep them here. And so when I drop the screen, it's possible some of these actually might become players. And so I might want to only take a couple, not really clean up the lowers much, do my bending, put the screen on, and then see what won't make it up and start cleaning. But certainly a lot of this low just needs to come out. So, all right. Wow, even down to the bottom, they just look so healthy. Love what soil can do when it's watered properly. Most of the problems we see in living soil, especially when hand watering, is just people thinking it's a nutrient issue when it's a watering issue. The nutrient was a symptom of the real problem, which is the watering, and Earthbox really takes care of that. I'm just gonna make a mess out here. A lot of times I'll have like a bucket to put all of my cuttings in, but I'm just gonna make a mess. So I could pull these plants out, might make it a little easier, but most of you are gonna be dealing with a situation like this, and they are pretty heavy. So we're just gonna leave it in there and climb in. And then one thing is you can gently take everything and put it out, or you can literally make a mess in here and then just climb in once it's cleaned up and clean it all out. Once the scrog screen, it's gonna be a little harder, but I can climb in there pretty easy and clean it up. I can get a shop vac tube in there and clean anything up. And so I'm not gonna be trying to be pretty and perfect. I just wanna get the job done on camera today. So any that are decent, I'm just gonna put in here, and you can watch our cloning videos later for how we do that. In fact, because I am gonna be keeping some of these at home, this is what I do. I put a small amount of aloe vera. Aloe is something that we found back in the day. It's a really good medicinal plant, and you can use it for rooting. similar to like the willow plant. Aloe I think is a little better. And this is freeze dried, so it is amazingly potent. And normally when you just go buy an aloe leaf like from the store, it has to be really fresh, like harvested that day, and that's not what you get at the store. So this is freeze dried, day of harvest, makes it a lot better. We got a video on it if you're interested in that. But I'm just gonna soak my cuts in there. I soak them for a few hours, up to 24 hours, and then I put them in their pucks. You know what? I've even got more clones to take from that side. And so I may not even focus on doing that right now. I just want to show you this tent on camera, and then I'll do the other one off camera since it's so much work. Well, so much work when I'm recording. But at home, this should, only take you a little bit of time, and because you're not recording, you can go in and stagger it. You can go put 10 minutes in here, 20 minutes there, and then over a day or two get this job done and then flip to flower. Wow, there's a lot in here. Okay, so on each branch coming from the bottom, to get to the screen height is probably what I'm interested in. Everything below that can kind of get cleaned off. And so at least when I'm defoliating all these leaves that are lower, I can pull because they're gonna be so buried by the top. So my dilemma is, should I put the screen on now so that I can really make sure that stuff that I cut off is just not making the screen, or should I clean it all? I think I'm gonna spend a little more time cleaning, and then I will prematurely smash it all down and bend it out so that I'm not taking too much off the bottom. And then after I flip the flower, I can always do this again once I see what really made it and what didn't. But a lot of times people just leave too much on the plant. They're really worried about it. You might hear that beeping right now. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the last video, but we hooked up this auto top off device. We're gonna be talking about it later, but all my humidifier water's in here. It's automatically topping off right here in the humidifier, so my humidifier stays full. It's really nice. When I left for 2 weeks, I didn't have to check the humidifiers, and the crew here while I was gone just had to make sure the bucket had some water in it. And that's pretty cool, but that's what that beeping was, in case you're wondering. And when there's two plants, sometimes the ones that are crowding each other here in the center, I'll pull some of those out, but I kind of want to see what the screen does first, so wait a little bit there. Gonna have to move these fans. Obviously I left for 2 weeks and I didn't move the fans up. I think someone here moved them up just slightly because they were blasting the plants, and that can cause a little burn. But I'm going to raise this up a little bit right now. Probably not ideally, but at least temporarily, until I reorganize the wires in here. And we'll talk about that in the next episode. Once this is done, we'll talk about getting ready for flower, the environment, all that stuff. So today it's just too much. We won't go over that today. You can tell hardy and strong the plants are when you try and pull a leaf off. Sometimes they're a little easy, but sometimes they're really hard. And experience will kind of dictate when you should do that versus scissors. But just be careful. You can strip the plant or hurt it if you don't know what you're doing and you grab a branch too hard. But a lot of times this is easier than scissors, especially for the lowers. So even as I do this, I realize it's hard to show you. Not a lot to do while I'm doing it. So I'm really after showing you the results. And so I'm gonna get to the top, and then I'll probably talk about what I'm doing and maybe put it on a tripod and leave it here so that you can really see the kind of the finished process as we get there, because that's all you need to see. Each one of you are gonna have to make decisions about which branch maybe to pull versus which one not to, but it's hard to make a decision that's wrong when we're really just trying to fill this canopy up here. And this one went through a re-veg, which is part of why it took longer in the beginning. Like I probably would have been able to flip the flower when I left town, except I went through re-veg. So it was like slow the first 2 weeks, deceivingly slow. And when I was leaving, you could see it was hitting its stride. And like the first few days I left, Eric reported back that they were getting fibers and stuff, and it was starting to veg again, and then boom, 2.5 weeks later or whatever, it's just filled up the whole tent. And I'm just gonna keep going on this, and then we'll get to the point where we do the top. And then once this is cleaned up, it'll be easier access for me to do the top dressing. And I'm actually gonna mix it in a bucket first to make it easy, and to make it easy for those roots to explode into. And so I'll explain that once I'm done with the canopy. Sometimes I'll actually put a little bit of the leaf material in the mulch layer, but it's not totally necessary, and I'm trying to keep this one really simple. But these leaves can become food, right? I'm not gonna worry about cuttings on this side. I got too many to give away. I'll take a lot of good cuts from that side when we're not filming. That'll allow me to just kind of get after it right now. So like this one I'd normally cut off, but the screen's gonna be kind of low, so we'll see how aggressive I get when we get there. For now though, there's definitely some leaves that can come out, regardless of how low we go. This will really help keep airflow up in the tent too. You don't want it to be all crowded and wet down here and causing problems. See, it's not what you don't want to do. Broke one by hand. It would have recovered, but it's okay. It was kind of a spindly one. Let's keep it for later. Okay, if I wasn't on camera, I'd probably come back in 10 minutes and do a little bit more. But I'm interested in showing you that final height and then what I need to clean up. So I'm gonna get the trellis net and I'm gonna start doing some stuff in here and just seeing what we can do. A couple things that you can do. I could come in here and start pinching these, right? But I'm gonna go pretty low. And so it may be better for me to just start low stress training, bending instead of super cropping. But some of these are just too tall. So I could bend it, but then see this opening in the center where there's not much there. So it might be better for me to super crop some of these and fold them. That way there's plants in the center, and then fold some out, fold some over. And that's why taking the plants out and in at this point when they're woven together is gonna be harder. So I just do it right in place. You know, have some health issues with your back or whatever, obviously you can take this out. You can have a friend help you lift it up. You can do it while you're standing. You don't have to be crawling around like I'm doing. But it's important to me that I grow good medicine, I eat healthy, I also stay really active so that I can do this type of stuff without pain. And I think that's all part of the lifestyle. So you should be able to get under there, and if you can't, make sure that you consider that in the style of grow that you do so that you can make it easy on yourself so that this is continually fun and rewarding for you. I think what I'll do is put the net on and then bend underneath it and then tuck the front in, because this is literally a problem. This is a jungle in here. I almost wanted to do it off camera, show you what it looks like and how I got there on the next one, but I thought it was kind of disingenuous, especially for a side-by-side, and I'd rather just have you see me go through all the struggles so that you avoid doing this. I definitely overshot the trajectory here, partly because the re-veg, partly because I left town, but it doesn't really matter. I'm responsible for it and I blew it. So I'm gonna get the net out and I'm just really gonna do some serious pullback in here and see what happens. I think that's gonna be the solution right now. Let's open it. We had a different net that we were gonna use. We've had some where they're like a little bit longer, you can cut some, but man, when you get a weird size net, it can be almost impossible to open sometimes. And this particular brand of 4x4 has made it easier than the other ones we found. So we just stuck with this company. But even despite that, you might still get something a little bit wonky sometimes depending on how it was in the bag. And so this part can be a little frustrating. One of the things I recommend doing is to start to open it and maybe have a friend help you or put it like on a doorknob. But what I found is these 4x4 ones compared to like a 4x16, they're easier to untangle when things go wrong. And so that's why we provided these in our beginner kits. I feel like it's just a much less stress-free way to go. Even though they got tangled, you can see it's pretty easy. If you have like a doorknob or something in your house to put it on, you can kind of stretch it out, right? And it's easier by yourself. Otherwise, I feel like just be gentle. Don't just start pulling on it like a knot. And when you open it, a lot of times that catch will just pop out. So that's why we carry this brand. I've carried others and they're a nightmare. So there's many ways you can attach this. With your kit's gonna come zip ties. And if you get a bundle like this, you're gonna have a lot of AC Infinity little Velcro zip ties. You can use those, regular zip ties, really doesn't matter. I've got a couple zip ties here, so I'm gonna start with those. And so I've got two options here. I can go left to right, right to left, by starting with these two corners and pulling it over, or I can go to the back, kind of pull it up, start to tuck and then pull it down. I think I'm gonna go back and start in the back first. I don't really have a rhyme or reason to that, but that's what I'm gonna do. A lot of people do things differently. I even saw people with these rope ratchets flip them the other way so that they can just pull down instead of having to pull up on the lights. And so everybody has their kind of preference. What really matters is that you get good results. So I have access over here. Some of you may not have access to the side of your tent, so you'll just have to reach back over there. It's really not a big deal in a 4x4, but I'm gonna make it a little bit easier on myself right now. I've got some stuff here, but it's still easier. So now I have to decide. Usually what I do is I'll just kind of throw it over. And now I'm gonna find the corner where there's 2 and 1. See, the corner? So I know that's the corner. I left it, I didn't go super tight. I can always push this down or pull it up as I go. So I'm gonna leave it slightly, maybe higher than I want. Go to the other side and pull it across. And I don't wanna pull any plants with it until I really get it dialed. Now I have a hole through here, but I have my vent and I have my water here to be on gravity. So I'm just gonna climb through the tent on this side. I actually can get in the middle here because there's no trellis net on there yet. And now I'm in. So I go here, I find, again, the corner, put it through, make sure I'm geared up the right way here. And now I'll just drop it down. Okay, I lean on the plants a little bit, but they're gonna be pretty smashed. They're gonna rebound no problem after I put this net on. The first net, we're kind of using to smash them down and then grow through it. And then after that, the second net will be to kind of minimize any stretch. When they go through the first screen, I'll be able to bend them different ways to keep the stretch from being too much, but it'll also hold the weight of the buds. So I go high, so I'm not pulling the plants the wrong way. And I could tell that I'm gonna wanna start to tuck down and smash. Not through the holes, but under. Bending a little bit towards the back of the tent. Being kind of aggressive here. Okay, now I'll come and I'm gonna just put the front one on. Now you'll notice these 4x4s, they're 4x4, but there's some slack. I don't want that slack, so I kind of pull it tight. And then I like loop it around and then I zip it on. There's not a perfect way to do it, but I just don't want it to be loose is really what I'm getting at. So let's go here. To about here, I'm gonna drop it lower when I'm done. Now it doesn't have to be pulled tight because I have zip tie length. But that's gonna come into the edge here and change the shape a little, so I find the sweet spot where it's tight everywhere in the second hole instead of the first. It was just a way to make it tight. Okay, there we go. Now once I get this one, I can really start making sure. And then if I didn't get it quite right, I can always go and start to tuck things a little bit more towards the back because I'm missing a lot back there. It's holding a lot of height here that needs to be addressed. Okay. This is why you don't want to overgrow it. It kind of sucks. Go to that same height here in the corner. I may actually have to put another zip tie when we're done to stretch it out a little bit because you can see it's rounding a lot with the plants in there. All right, it's already better, but from the back, I pulled a lot off that I didn't want off the wall. So I'm gonna move some of them to the back. We're gonna aggressively bend and get this thing lower. These just kind of snap on, they're in my way right now, so I should have just pulled it off. You're gonna be pinching some of the stems, it's totally okay, they will recover, and I've got too much plant matter in here. I'll be removing some of it anyways. Right now, I'm just trying to push some to the back corners, some to the sides, and then we'll see how bad it really is when we get a little bit more flat in here. People are gonna freak out watching this episode, like, what in the f are you doing to those plants? I swear, if you follow back though, it's crazy how aggressive you can be with plants when you really have to be. And then I'm gonna let the strong survive. So I'll pinch a little so I don't snap it. But anything that wants to push through here will be able to. And then some that don't make it will just get trimmed off, it's fine. God, it still didn't buy very much room in here. This is the most I've had to do. We really overshot this. This is crazy. It's still a little too tall in here. So now what I can do is start pulling the edges. Really getting it back. I still think this is gonna turn out pretty cool. I'm excited to see now how this side by side goes, what these lights do, what the food does with this overgrowth and just an earth box. If we can finish this strong, it's just such a good thing because it allows you to see, hey, there's a proven plan. If I follow, it'll be easy. If I make any mistakes, it will still work. When I first started growing in hydro, it's like, if you make a mistake, you lose your round. That fucking sucks. Where in here, the plant health is phenomenal. That's what matters. They're gonna rebound from this really, really well. I'm just gonna be tucking. I don't really want stuff through the screen right now or it's gonna go too fast. It's kind of wild, but here's my attempt. Getting it fully tied back. Man, even if I flip to flower now, it's gonna hit. It's insane how much I overshot it. I'm gonna go more. This is gonna be kind of fun. I have these little mini fans down here that I gotta lower, and they're plugged in, and I've got the wires like all nice, so give me a sec to give me some slack. Oh man, so I'm gonna have to flip to flower in like the next day too. pretty quick basically, but I need to see some rebound here, some poke through, some signs that I didn't completely blow it. I could also just release this trellis at some point, let it pop up and put another one down, but I feel like this is gonna hold and gonna work. I'm pretty interested to see. That humidity is gonna be a problem. It's gonna be blasting directly on everything. So going into flower, the humidity drastically, like the needs drastically change because you're only on for 12 hours and the plants go through stretch and they transpire a lot. So I probably won't need that much. In fact, with this much plant in here, this humidifier pretty much hasn't been going the last week. It's just the reservoir has been full every day. It barely goes. Only reason you see it firing right now is because the tent is open. So we'll talk about that in the environment episode. I'll probably pull the humidifiers out once we get into flower. Just won't need it. I'll discuss the weak link and how to make those decisions, especially when you're growing in a small tent versus a big room. So I have a feeling I'll be doing a little tucking, like finding some of the edge ones where maybe there's not as much in the middle and moving them back once this really pops off. But for now, it's pretty good. What I really do want to do in here though is start to defoliate. I probably could have done a better job. So on the next side, I'll probably defoliate a lot better before I do the smash down. And what I mean by that is instead of worrying about cutting the branches off, just take every big leaf off. It'll allow a lot more light to penetrate all these little nodes that I want to stretch and jump and become my flowers. Where normally I wouldn't really do this outdoors because you have the sun, right? I mean, this is totally an indoor thing. I see people do it outdoors, but I feel like it's a waste of effort. I would just plant one more plant, let it do its thing. So, whew, lots to do. I kind of want to turn it off, come back because we got so much. I've got to go to the bank right now. And then I will show you how much more I take off. But really that's my plan, is to come through in here and I'm going to start to defoliate everything. And then what I can do now is see, okay, what made it up and what didn't. So a lot of these, like it's so dense up there, I don't need these to kind of come up. So I can start to take all this stuff off. Doesn't make any sense. It's just under the canopy and I had so much extra that I just don't need most of that stuff. So I'll be cleaning it all up. Some of these danglers, they just got pinched. And so that's why it's kind of dangling. Depending on how much it rebounds, some of that stuff may come off as the parts that are tops become tops, and that may not actually have enough to see, but I could kind of push it through right here. And as that recovers, it'll grow out the side. So feeling pretty weird about this one. Normally our YouTube grows, we want to do so perfectly, especially when we're teaching like the Earthbox beginner method, but a lot of you will overshoot it. And I feel like, man, I guess it's another lesson I can teach about, but part of me wishes that it hadn't re-vegged, I hadn't gone on vacation, and I kept it perfect. But life isn't that way. If you're gonna grow 24/7, 365, so you can always have some to show off, some for the head, some to share as gifts, then you're gonna have things like this happen, trying to keep it going all the time. The nice thing is when I used to leave town, man, you'd be telling your friends like, hey, can you pH this? Or you'd be wondering like, okay, maybe don't tell them to pH, but just mix it. And then worst case scenario, it's overgrown. I could have just gone in here and literally topped it all off, but I decided to try and keep a lot of it. So it's up to you how you do it. Number one weakest link was this space needs to be for flower, not for veg. So however you do it, that was the most important thing that I had to get done. I could spend another hour or 30 minutes probably pulling leaves out of here. I don't have that time today. So I'm gonna do that, probably later this afternoon when I get back from the bank. But what I don't want to miss out on is showing you how to keep up with the massive amount of nutrients we're going to need to flower this now that we've already vegged so much. So let me show you that, and then we'll wrap up the episode and we'll keep documenting the rest of this as we go. I'll probably film again in the next couple days just to show you what it looks like. So I've got a bag of cocoa, half cubic footer. If you get this kit, it comes with the Build-A-Flower. We already used that. And so it's up to you. You can use Build-A-Flower or cocoa, or you can go back and forth or both. I like using both for whatever reason. It's got really good Malibu compost in our Build-A-Flower with our BuildASoil castings. And then you get the cocoa castings, which have a lot more nutrients for flowering. We add nutrients to the Build-A-Flower, but this is still a little stronger. And so in this case, I feel like it's gonna be really good because we need a lot of food to flower this out, and it may be just a complete shit show. So we're gonna get it going. I'm gonna use one whole half cubic footer for these two plants. I got another half cubic footer for the other two plants. So I'm gonna pull the string. That opens the bag. And instead of me just going in there and putting it on, I'm actually gonna dump it in here. Wow, that's a lot of material. It's gonna be pretty fun. Now the cocoa castings come nice and moist, and there's usually, I just found one, live worms in there. Is it in my hand? Yeah, they were like jumping around because I poured it. That was kind of cool. Here. So you can see just baby worms. I never had any other castings. Like Malibu, occasionally, 1 out of 100 bags, I'd find some worms, sometimes depending on the year. But every time I see like there's little crawly things and just like the life that you're looking for. And so there's another grower that I follow that a lot of you might follow, Floral Farm. He was here for the BuildASoil Days event, and he has a little worm in, like a worm bin, right in his grow beds. And when he starts a new bed, he scoops out of it and inoculates the new bed with it. That's very much what this is. It's very active. It's almost like pulling it fresh out of your own worm bin. So this might be a little hard to mix in here by the volume, but I'm gonna do my best. Normally what I would do is add some craft blend. And so I oftentimes will mix it in, but I'm looking, I'll be able to mix it. For these 2 plants, I'm gonna do a 1/2 cup of craft blend for each. So there's 1 and 2. I could do more than that, but that's a lot of food. And then that's a lot of worm casting, so I think that'll be sufficient. I can always go add a little more later. Next to this, it's really actually pretty moist, so I don't wanna go too hard. So let me mix it first. But I've got a little water here so that I can add some root-wise and add a little bit of our WDG 3000. Anytime you have new compost that you're adding, new worm castings that you're adding, or setting up a new soil container bed, we wanna use the WDG 3000 because it eliminates all the gnat larvae with a very basic biology, and that'll make sure you don't have any gnats in your grow, which would be frustrating. The good thing is in organic soil, the gnats don't really hurt your plants. They feed on organic matter. So they just start breaking down more food for your plant. But man, if they get bad, they can affect the roots a little bit on a young plant, and they can start to get like into the flowers, and that's gross. So that's why we use this stuff, to make sure you just don't have to deal with those problems. Back in the day, we all had to deal with gnats, and we'd be like, oh, it's fine, but it's really not. They suck, and you just shouldn't have to deal with it anymore. If you read the reviews on that product, it does everything we ever wanted it to, and it's one of the best new additions to the BuildASoil lineup. It changed the game. I mean, Subcool even had a gnat like tattooed on him. You don't have to go through that shit. Like, you don't need gnats. It's just a thing of the past. With living soil, you don't have to do that. The biological products are pretty incredible. So what I'm doing is I'm just mixing all these castings through all the way to the bottom so that the side by side, you know, each plant gets what it needs. Okay, that's great. Now, it's not gonna be just a matting of nutrients that gets hard and then castings, it's mixed in, and the roots are gonna explode into that in flower. And what's so cool about the earth box is even though that's a ton of food and compost, the feeder roots will be in there. The water roots can go down in the water reservoir and get tons of clean water to balance the nutrients, and the plant can do it on its own. So I don't have to get the ppm just right, the pH just right. It can literally eat larger microbes, like it can eat food bigger than just water soluble. And so I did a whole talk on this in the beginning of last year, but many people think that organics is broken down to only what the biology can reduce to water soluble. So might as well just go hydro, it's all water soluble. But these plants can actually eat larger molecules, they farm biology, they do all these amazing things. And then they can take the food from up top and the water from down below and appropriately take care of themselves without any nutrient issues. Where when it's all in hydro and the water and the nutrients literally have to be pH perfect, parts per million properly dialed, or you will have a problem with your plant. That's like the white lab coat, I'm in control of everything. Here, I'm just being a steward. A little bit of a bad steward in the sense that I let them overgrow, but that's how you get the most perfect result. These plants have been doing it for thousands of years. They don't need us to be fully in charge. Okay, enough talk, let's get this done. I'm gonna pop it off. You can see feeder roots are already starting over here. See these roots? So these roots are gonna shoot up to the top, and it's because I over-vegged. Normally you don't see that until flower, but I over-vegged, and so there's feeder roots on the side there. That's a good sign though, because they're gonna rage on this food as soon as I put it in there. It's pretty cool. Since it's in the back, I'll probably put some up front and push it to the back, and I'm gonna aim for doing about half. So let me get a cup, see if I have something I can use. Might make it a little bit easier. So let's see the volume. Okay, I'll use about half for each plant. If I make a mess, I can just grab a shop vac. It's totally okay. I like it to be clean, but man, a lot of times I waste a lot of effort trying to be all clean so I don't have to clean up after. And when I'm doing a lot, I'll just know, okay, I'm gonna grab the shop vac, make sure it's all dialed in after this. Doesn't have to be perfect in here. You just wanna get the volume in here. I like to try and get it to the corners, but as long as it's in here, the feeder roots will find it. In fact, Alan from Grokashi, he's the one that showed me the earth boxes in the PFA group a while ago, and he would even put nutrients like on a paper plate and set it under here, under the mulch layer, and the roots, or the biology actually, would go deliver it, break it down, and feed it to the plants. It's pretty incredible. And so that gave me a lot more faith and confidence that, hey, I can just put this in here and they're gonna figure it out. It's not a big deal. Ooh, more worms. Worms do great in the earth boxes. They go wild. Help break down the food and stuff. You can see I'm mounding now. Going way above the sides. It's totally fine now because you got the cover on it. So the roots will be able to go right up underneath that cover and eat this stuff. I try not to go too heavy in the stalk. You'll notice my mound is mainly away from the stalk, down a little bit around it, but it really doesn't matter in here. I haven't seen a plant this big get like a stalk issue from a top dress. Sometimes people think if you put too much moist compost on there, it could rot it out, but best practice, I avoid doing it on purpose, but I'm not too worried about it. Some people do it on purpose, but you know, that's more for like tomato plants. They just shoot roots out of everywhere. They vine, so it's slightly different. Okay, I wanna make sure that I put half, and I want some more in the back. Wow, a lot of worms. And this is literally like, he brought me a goodie bag for myself, which means he just gave me a bag of castings. But while I was out of town, one of my homies was in the shop and we were out, and he asked if he could take my bag, so I gave it to him. And when I got back, I just went and grabbed a two of these half cubic footers off the shelf. And I swear they're all homie bags. Like, he hooked it up. That's such good castings. If you haven't seen the video, it's one of our better performing videos on YouTube, comparing all the castings that we were able to really easily buy on Amazon compared to these Cowoco castings, and it's unbelievable how good these are. All right, that's about half. I think one more for good measure. And we'll be at half, and instead of me doing the other one on camera, I just want to explain all that to you. That's from the craft blend. That is camelina meal. Looks similar to the Kronja cake. It's an oil seed. So then it's pressed and it sometimes sticks in those little flat discs. Be good food for the soil though. This stuff really feeds it. It'll grow mycelium. Pretty cool. Okay, that's the mounding. These are so much easier than those black plastic ones that come with it. I just love these New Moon covers. So I've got some more to clean up in here. I'm going to defoliate a lot so I can see it a little bit better and give it a day. And then we'll do probably on camera another recording to show you what it looks like and what my last steps are to get ready for flower. Just too much when we record in one day. So next I'm going to do the exact same thing on this earth box. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other 4x4 tent so that it's a good side-by-side. And then in the next few days, I'll turn the camera on. We'll show you what it looks like. We'll see if we ruin the grow or whether it's pushing back through, and we'll get ready to flip to flower and see if we can contain these beasts. I just don't do what I did, but leverage the horsepower these have to have an incredible grow. Flip to flower a little bit sooner, and you're gonna have one of the best grows of your life. If you've got questions, obviously there's a lot that I kind of left out because of how much time it would take. You know, if I wasn't talking, this probably would have been 20, 30 minutes, but I'm trying to not miss a step and make sure I speak about it. So Hugh, in your garden, it should be a few minutes a day, maybe. And then occasionally, right before flower, or if you make a mistake like I did and you kind of have to clean up and backtrack, there's maybe a couple times during a round where you spend an hour or two. Other than that, we're talking minimal input when you follow the BuildASoil way. You can have a full-time job, you can take vacations, and still have healthy plants and not stress out about the complications and the pH and did I overdo a nutrient or any of that stuff. So if you'd like to grow the BuildASoil way, we've got a full support crew that can help you here. You can reach out anytime. We answer the phone, we answer emails. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, things like that to help get more answers. Otherwise, right here on YouTube's a great spot. You can put your questions in there, and we're gonna do frequently asked questions videos for each one of the seasons that we do. And so please ask some questions, participate. Let's talk about this stuff, and until next time, I will see you on the next BuildASoil video. All right, I had to turn the camera back on. It's gonna be like transparent, genuine, I guess, instead of trying to fix it after the fact. It's also a side-by-side, so I wanna be genuine to the light manufacturers. I strapped this thing down and I took a step back. I was just trying to get through it on film, and I looked back and I was like, yeah, that's still way too much plant material in there. It's just way too much plant material. These GMOs are insane. So what I'd like to do is just hack the plants back a lot. And if we need to veg for a few days to fill it up, it's better, I think, than trying to go backwards. So I started just hacking. I only cut one, and I feel like I can at least show you this tent. And then instead of me bending that one all, I'm gonna come in and top it like crazy before I put the trellis net on. At least I won't have so much biomass in there. It's just too much. It's gonna make it harder for airflow. It's gonna be a little bit moist. And Dave and I were talking about it the whole time he's filming. He's thinking, man, normally you just top them. We probably should have done that. And I'm like, I know, but man, I like bending if it's not that much. Because had I not overshot it a lot, you can kind of bend and all of a sudden your whole screen's full. Where this way, when I top, I might have some holes that I need to kind of like let fill in. But I think that's gonna be the lesser of two evils here. It's gonna be the weakest link is the room. Like that's really the weakest link. So I'd rather overdo this than overdo this, because then my quality won't be as good, and that's most important. I want some good smoke. So I'm gonna have lots of cuts off of here. I'm just not gonna be able to keep them all. When I go to top that side, it'll be a lot easier for me to keep them all. So I'll just do that. So I'm just gonna cut, just gonna get going. Already so much better. Okay, that's good. So now I can kind of cut. I'm wanting the trellis screen to be about here. So as I pull a branch, I can kind of find them and say, all right, well, let's go down to about that height. A lot of biomass being taken out, but I think it's gonna lead to a better run at the end, so I'm just gonna do that. So some of these I can leave from the low, but it's easier to take a low one out than it is to like completely smash one under and let them double up on each other. So I think I was just being too aggressive. I'd rather admit it. So I'm just going to the main branches and cutting them all similar height, and then I'll work on side branches. Okay, I gotta take a couple clones. It's hard to kill a plant. You just wanna keep them all. Oh, that's already a lot better. Still might need to go a little lower. Oh, I don't want that one to split. Now I'm gonna get into the same here. Smells pretty good. Okay, it's getting a lot better. I think that's a little better now. See how many of these I actually want in the corner. Okay, let's see what that looks like now. What do you think, Dave? Look a little better? That was wild. It was just too dense in here. And there's so many nodes that can pop through now. I'm feeling really good about it. I'm probably gonna still kill some of these, but I just need to drop it and kind of take a peek. I could go a little lower. Ooh, I'm feeling a lot better about that now. There's just, I've done the bending a lot and it looks similar to this. There was so much overlapping in there, so much biomass. I was starting to get worried about it. I'm gonna clean up these ones that are just well past the edge now. That way they can just kind of pop through. And GMO is insane. It's gonna bounce back from this so hard. Looks like I'm getting some of the height back. The woodiest parts that are too tall, I'm just removing. It's just holding the screen up in the center still. We cut a lot off this, and this is so much better than it was. I'm starting to finally feel like maybe if we flip to flower, we can keep some of this height managed. Maybe. Time will tell. All right, well, I'm gonna let this rebound for a couple days. That way I can see which ones really wanna push through, which ones need to be tucked, and maybe a couple more need to be cut. That's looking a little better. Still too much. It's crazy how much is in here. That's what we'll be doing. I'm gonna go clean up a little bit, but I'll show you on camera over the next few days what it looks like. Now what I've got to do is I'll probably put the tripod up, but I've got to go over here. I'm gonna go to the bank now and come back. But I'm gonna start to come in here and do this one too. Instead of me starting with smashing, I'm literally gonna start at the height. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna go hard and just start removing it instead of bending it all. And I think I'm gonna get a lot better result. Either way, I'm gonna try and keep the amount of biomass very similar so that we can see this side by side to its fruition. I do feel for the lights, for doing a side by side, for sure would have been better if I just flipped early, had too small of plants. Then I could really see the differences, but I wanna see it through. Instead of me just scrapping it right now, I think I'd rather flip to flower instead of starting over, because I've never started over, I just keep going. And I think you guys will probably do the same thing at home. But that's what I've got to do in here, so. I wanna just do it all, but I gotta go to the bank. Lame. God, they look good. Okay, that's it. Thanks so much for watching the extended part. And thanks for watching me fumble and for still paying attention. But I feel like half the reason why people follow is like, this isn't some procured page where I just show you some pictures of somebody's perfect grow and say you can achieve this. I show you the ins and outs, all the problems we have, and back to back to back, harvest after harvest, season after season, experiment after experiment, we've been able to show that you can get results. So if you follow BuildASoil way, automatic watering, earth boxes, hand watering, big tent, small tent, outdoor, you're going to get to harvest. You're going to get your results. And I just appreciate you watching me as we go through some of the fun that can happen when your plants grow too well. So thanks as always. And until next time, I'll see you on the next BuildASoil video.